Aloha, welcome to my channel. Welcome back for return viewers, subscribers, and just fellow community members. Thank you so much for swinging by and checking out my video, checking out my channel. I just super appreciate it. I know there's like a bazillion other things you could be watching right now on YouTube. So the fact that you're watching my video is really awesome to me. So thank you so much for any time you're willing to give my videos out of your day. And so let's just try to keep our intros short and let's dive into today's video. So today is going to be a little bit more of like a free, flowy, not that my videos are generally speaking very structured, but today is going to be even more free, flowy, and more philosophically based. But hopefully I can provide some of my own life experiences around the matter to put a little bit of punctuation on the topic, and the topic is on expectations. I don't know what it is about that word now, but whenever I hear that word, I always have this like little jingle in my head. And I feel like it was actually a skit that was on Mad TV, and it was called Lowered Expectations. Am I just making that up? Because I swear every time I hear this like little jingle in my head that goes, Lowered Expectations. And yeah, anyways, and if that's not real and I'm just making it up, maybe it should be a thing. JP Sears, maybe you should get on that. Anyways, expectations. So, expectations. I have found, like, if you want a quick path to suffering, frustration, just, create a lot of expectations and guarantee you'll be frustrated at some point, but probably in a not so humorous endpoint, experience suffering, if not a lot of suffering. And so to kind of get into the why, why would I say that? Why would I say that having expectations creates frustration or even the worse, suffering? Well, if you really break down what an expectation is, it's very authoritarian-esque. So this would be, too, a trait of narcissists, of people that have the mindset that things should be a very certain specific way, and they should only be this very certain specific way of doing things, of carrying out business, of conducting one's self in life, relationships, how we interact with people, that it's all very clearly defined, and if you're not following this rule book, you're doing it wrong, and I expect you to fall in line with what I'm telling you is the right or wrong way to be. So in a nutshell, to me at least, that's what I've come to see expectations are. It's an unhealthy mental, emotional projection of what I am wanting out of another person or people, as far as I am wanting certain outcomes. So if I do or act or offer any particular thing, that when I create expectations, I release my offering and I'm expecting to either A, get something back in return, or B, that eventually the favor, will be returned, not necessarily right away, or that I'll be given certain treatment And there's like a whole laundry list of stuff that I'm sure one can start to see in themselves when they start analyzing their own expectations and why they have expectations. So for me, it's that I've discovered that having expectations is a unhealthy aspect of ego. And so well then, but Sarah, what do we do if, say, I'm in a relationship and I have certain things that I really feel important about, as far as, what I want to get, or how I want my partner to be and behave, or to interact with me in this relationship that we're building? And how can you do that without having expectations? Well, there's actually a difference between expectations and having standards. So having standards, you can get into any relationship or interaction with anybody that you want to without bringing in expectations. So say with the example of intimate relationships. So yeah, it makes sense that we should start, and if we're new to relationships, like I get that, you're new to it. So you got to kind of start trying on relationships, feeling out what your likes and dislikes are, and just creating more life feedback so that you can start fine-tuning what your standards actually are. Because you'll never really know until you kind of try something on, if something works for you or it doesn't, right? So how can, just kind of going back to the example of, having standards going into, say, that intimate relationship, partnership, is different than having expectations, because, say, it's a standard of mine for my significant other to be monogamous. That's a standard of mine. It's not an expectation, although I have faith in my partner and in this case, my husband, to fulfill that agreement. But, that there's a, even with marriage, that I don't I can't even say necessarily, I don't have expectations. I have standards, and it's throughout the years of being, just using myself as the example, that I've developed what my true authentic standards are and are not, what I am willing to work with and work through, and what I am not. And as life happens, funny things tend to happen, and sometimes when you're in a real situation, especially dealing with relationships, dealing with people, you might be willing to bend more than you think you are, too. So another reason why expectations can cause a lot of frustration and ultimately pain and suffering, because, to even have expectations over ourselves, well, nope, it's my standard that I have to have, or not standard, sorry, I meant to say expectation, that, my partner has to be monogamous, and then so therefore so do I have to be monogamous, and people better be behaving, or else, it's kind of like that tends to go with expectations too, this like or else, kind of almost like, again, authoritarian, like, being somebody's parent comes to mind. And it's kind of like, well, who do we think we are going around trying to parent everybody? Anyways, I might be going on a little bit of a tangent here, but I suppose I forewarned you all this was going to be a little bit more free-flowy and maybe ranty. But yes, expectations, they can really cause a lot of stress. And ultimately, you know, that is what I mean by the suffering. When we load ourselves down with expectations of my partner, I expect my partner to be like this, this, and this. I expect myself to be like this, this, and this. I expect my children or child to be this way, this way, this way. I even expect my pets to be this way, this way, this way. Okay, well then what happens to you if any of those people or relationships don't behave, pan out, fulfill your expectations? What happens to you? You're, like I've been mentioning, you're probably gonna end up in a place of frustration, pain, stress, ultimately suffering. All those experiences, if left unchecked, lead to suffering. And so I invite everybody, you know, and this is myself included. I can honestly say I've done a really good job of really honing in on all my expectations and deleting them. You know, or if there's something there that is important. So, for example, you know, I used to have the expectation of anybody being in a relationship with me, you know, has to be monogamous. Well, that's a standard now. So I've taken what was once in the realm of expectations and I've transferred it over to this is my standard. So anybody who chooses to show up alongside me and to walk through life with me, I just let them know this is my standard up front. And luckily for me, my husband, he agrees to my standards, and I agree to his standards. And so anything that we have like little bits of fuzzies on, we've been working out along the way. And so it's, you know, on a personal note, it's helped tremendously to soften all of this rigidness that we used to have. This is just kind of sharing a little bit about my personal relationship. But, you know, dropping these expectations, and ultimately, too, I can really only speak for myself. I can't speak for my husband. But for me, lessening or just getting rid of these expectations, like, oh no, I expect or else, you know, it's kind of like, man, that leaves little chance for error to the other person too. Like, and it's kind of like, man, if I'm going to be that rigid about somebody else making mistakes, I better have all my shit together. And it turns out I don't. So really, you know, kind of like pump the brakes on expectations there too, because it's like, until I can show up as a perfect human being, really, who am I to have and to hold others to expectations? So again, it's like looking at all of that and, okay, so maybe some of these expectations that I've had, they're important to me. So let me see what I can kind of tone down as far as like expecting, and what can I bring into myself as far as, well, I'm just seeing that this is an important quality to me, so this is something I can say is a standard but I am also not an authoritarian, and I will be willing to compromise with my fellow humans, because I also want the same too, the same kind of treatment. I would hope that, people would be willing to give me some wiggle room to make mistakes and to have flubs and to not be perfect. And so, it's also another way for us to practice that mirror work of extending to others what we're also wanting to come back to ourselves. So I hope my ranting today on this topic has made some sense. But yes, please check your expectations. And if you don't want to be an authoritarian type of individual, I would check your expectations. Even, to parents over kids. Yes, I have a son. He is just about to be 17. Oh my God. And I have standards for him, and I have hopes and desires for him, but I can't really say that I have expectations. Like even assigned tasks, for example, because I can just hear somebody now saying, well, yeah, but what about if you've given him an assignment and he doesn't do it? Wouldn't you be expecting him to fulfill that assignment? No, I would hope he would, because there are going to be consequences if he doesn't. So it's hoping he does so that he doesn't have to experience the consequence. But I'm also ready to administer the consequence if he doesn't follow through with, say, an agreement or a prearranged thing. Or, just chores. That's an agreement. That's a prearranged thing. He understands what his chores are, and he understands what happens if he doesn't do those chores. So no, I don't have expectations. I would like for him to do his chores, and I hope he does, because again, if he doesn't, there's consequences. And I'm not really a massive fan of administering consequences, but I will if I have to, because I get the benefit of that too as humans. So I'm trying to kind of think of all different ways that I can think of that expectations can manifest themselves into our lives, into our minds, into our hearts. And especially when it comes to the heart, if you have expectations there, I would really invite you to take a massively brave step and to drop them. Again, you can create standards. You can create standards about intimacy. You can have standards about what love means to you, at least where you're at in life, and on your journey of expanding your understanding of love. But I would really encourage and invite you to first look at any of these things, not just matters of the heart, but get real with yourself and really look at all of the expectations you have in life over people, places, things. And just start somewhere, bit by bit, getting rid of those expectations. And if you find that there's a hard, like an expectation you're having a hard time getting rid of, it could be that there's something in that expectation then that's a very important variable. And so maybe it's just extract out the important variable and put that in your standards pile, if you will, and drop the expectation though. Because again, expectations, at least for me, I have found are very authoritarian-esque. It's a very dictator-like way to be in life. It's quite narcissistic. So Anybody that doesn't like narcissistic qualities too much, check your expectations. This is where you can clean up your own narcissistic traits, which we all have, because we all have egos, right? Like we all have certain aspects of the mind, aspects of the ego that are very self-centered, and to some degree there's appropriateness to that. But when we're trying to expand ourselves, expand what it means to be human, expand our understanding of self, expectations have got to go. All right, so yay! 20 minutes, not too bad. At least it's less than 30. And I'm trying to kind of like work on also posting and adding some shorter videos, because I realize not everybody wants to get into super longish videos. So anyhow, I hope that this was helpful. I know for me, really getting this whole subject matter straightened out, not just for my personal growth, but for my spiritual growth especially, has been kind of mandatory. So I suppose for those that are serious about their personal growth and spiritual growth journey, this can be an assignment to you. So maybe sit down and write a list, work out all those expectations, anything that you're seeing as an expectation. Is there anything in there that's just, it's an expectation because maybe there's an important variable in there, and then so maybe that variable just needs to become a standard, at least for now, at least where you're at in life for now, because our standards also change as we change. So again, another good reason why it's not so good to have expectations. All right, and if there's anybody that disagrees with me, please feel free to leave it in the comments below. Let me know why you disagree with me, and so that way we can have constructive dialogue and not just bash each other's opinions, because what would be the point in that? All right, so I look forward to seeing y'all in the next video, and that's it for now. Aloha.